Hey everyone, I want to talk to you a little bit about what in the world is this program, Change Your Mind, Create New Results. So, I'm going to take a little bit of time to kind of hit some highlights so that you can have a better understanding of what this program really is and to determine whether or not it's right for you. So, this is a program that was created by Dr. Joe Dispenza. Now, Dr. Joe Dispenza was formerly trained as a chiropractor and then started really getting interested into neuroscience and brain science. So now, for the last 30 years, he has been studying neuroscience. He's been lecturing internationally. He's written multiple international bestsellers about neuroscience and how to apply it to people. So, what he's done is he's taken that information, created a formula, created a process to help all of us try to apply this information to allow us to think differently, act differently, and feel differently. Now, what does that mean? Why is that so important? Well, if you think about where you're at this moment, your life, you may or may not be happy with it. You may or may not be happy with your career. You may or may not be happy with the car you're driving or the relationship you're in or whatever it is. And the thing is, we have thoughts about every one of those things in our lives, right? Now, each time we have those thoughts affect us and they affect the choices we make in our lives, right? Because you have a thought, what do? You make a choice about it. Well, then, when you have that choice will influence an action or behavior, right? So now you had a thought, it's going to now lead to an action or behavior. So you're going to start behaving a certain way based on that thought, right? So now, when you start behaving that way, you're going to have a certain experience in your life, right? You're going to experience your friends a certain way. You're going to experience work a certain way. You're going to experience your home life in a very particular way. It may be good. It may be very positive. It may be not so good. Now, that experience will lead to a feeling, an emotion, right? So let's say you're not necessarily feeling good from that experience. Well, what does that produce? A not so good feeling. Now, that not so good feeling does what? It produces the very same thoughts in your mind. Now, what happens? When you produce the same thoughts over and over and over again, and we all do this all the time. If you think about, if you just sit and think about, what have I been thinking about just today, in the last hour? And you could write it down. And then you think about, all right, how many times have I been thinking about this, right? So we have repetitive thoughts all the time. The catch is, most of the time, we're repeating thoughts that we don't even like. We don't even truly want in our life. But they become so ingrained, so habitual, so much us that we don't know any other way. Why? Because your thought leads to a new choice, which creates a behavior, and that behavior produces a new experience, or sorry, the same experience, and that same experience produces the same exact emotion. Now, that emotion, you feel it, right? It's in your body. You, like when you have a bad thought, your body feels bad. Like your everything about you feels that thought, right? And so what happens? That message goes back up to the brain and tells the brain, yeah, we're not feeling good. We're having this bad thought again. And what does the brain do? The brain has the same thoughts again, right? Because the body's telling it it's still angry or still unhappy, whatever it is. And we repeat that cycle. Now, that cycle goes on for ages, right? You see people where you could see that, man, they've been a certain way since childhood and they've never changed, right? They've never changed this habit, they've never changed this behavior. And that is part of the human process, right? We all do this all the time. It's a lot easier to look at other people, pick on other people, but all in all, we all have this situation going on in our lives, right? So, how do you make change? Well, to make change is going to require a new thought. Now, when you have that new thought is going to have the potential to produce a new choice. Now, imagine you come up with this new thought and you're sitting there and you're like, I don't know how to deal with this. This is just, it's never been, it never worked. It's never happened. I don't think we can do this. So the interesting thing is so many people have new thoughts, new things that they think they would want, or they get inspired. Let's say you're looking at social media and you get inspired by a video or what someone said and you're like, oh yeah, I feel that, I want that in my life. Well, that new thought leads to a new choice. And the problem is, where most people get hung up is when you make that new choice, how's it going to feel? Well, it's probably going to feel uncomfortable. It's going to feel unfamiliar or unknown, right? You're not going to know what is going to happen. And it's going to make you feel uncomfortable, uncertain. And you're going to check in with your body, and your body's going to say, yeah, this ain't working for me. I'm very happy going back to the old self. I'm okay not going down there because I don't know what's going on down there. We've lived this life for so long this way. So, what happens? The body controls the mind and gets the person to go back to the old thought. Why? Because it's safe. It feels good. It feels familiar. Right? So when people try to make new choices, when they try to think new thoughts, it's going to require a shift, a change, right? You're going to have to do something different, which is going to do what? Cause a different behavior, right? You're going to have a different action. Now, if you've been programmed and you've got a habit of doing something exactly the same way at the same exact time, your body is going to be like, whoa, what's going on here? And you got to be able to tell your body, hey, I'm trying something new. We're going to do something different. We already know what the old self is like. And if this doesn't work, we know we can go back to it. It's okay. So you try something new. You do something different. Do something that is very unfamiliar to you. Now, what is that going to do? It's going to produce a new experience, right? And that new experience, again, it's going to be like opening a new book. It's going to be like, wow, I didn't know this existed. When you get to this point, you start having these experiences of the new people, the new objects, the new things that come into your life. And now you get to have these experiences of these different things in your life. And what is that going to do? it's going to produce a new emotion. And typically, when you have change, that change will produce the happiness we've been missing. It's going to produce the joy or the love or the compassion that we've been missing. Now, when you have that feeling, what's going to happen? Well, the brain's going to be checking in with the body and saying, how are you feeling? Oh, you're feeling love, you're feeling happiness, you're feeling joy. That feeling is now going to influence a new thought that's going to increase the previous thought, improve the previous thought, and continue to change and continue to grow those thoughts. And what does that do? It creates new choices, new behaviors, new experiences, and finally, this new emotion, right? And that's called evolution. Now, we all have the ability to do this. The problem is, we haven't really been shown. We haven't been taught how to do this. And if you think about as simple as going from grade school all the way to professional school, we are taught how to think a certain way, act a certain way, feel a certain way. And it may or may not fit what you need, want, or feel, right? So we've been taught to conform to something that may or may not properly resonate with us. So what this program does, what Change Your Mind, Create New Results does, is it helps you understand how this is one model I'm presenting to you, but this model helps you understand how a simple change of thought can lead to a whole new feeling and a whole new world in your life. Now, when we go through this program, there's a lot of processes that we're going to talk about, but we're going to talk about a couple concepts. So one concept is, how do we even change, right? So I talked to you about a model of change. Well, how do we change? So to change, we have to overcome our environment. We have to overcome our body, and we have to overcome time. So what we do in this work is we talk about what is the environment? How do you overcome it? What is the body? What does that even mean in this situation? How do you overcome your body? Well, have you ever thought about every time, let's say, you wanted to start a New Year's resolution of exercise, and you got it planned out, December's rocking, you're like, yes, when January 1st comes, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it, and I'm going to stick with it, and I'm going to be good at it. And then January 1st comes around, and now you have to change, right? You're going to be doing something different in your life. Well, what happens? You don't feel comfortable, and the body's saying, like, I don't want this exercise. It doesn't even feel good. I don't even enjoy it. Go back and lay on the couch and just watch some more Netflix. It feels good, right? That's the body. That's how the body controls us all the time. So we'll talk about those things, right? How to be greater than the environment, be greater than the body, and be greater than time. And then we're going to talk about a concept called living in survival or living in creation. What is that? Well, we have evolved over time in many ways. And one thing that has helped us is what's called the sympathetic nervous system, right? So back in long time ago, thousands of years ago, or actually it doesn't even have to go back that far, just 500 years ago, the sympathetic nervous system was very, very important because it was the system in our body that helps protect us, right? It's what keeps us alive. So if you think about if T-Rex was coming around the corner and you could sense it, your sympathetic nervous system turns on, and it gets you to either do one of three things: run, fight, or hide, right? That's what the sympathetic nervous system does. And it's very, very important to survival. And it's helped us survive through ages of time. Now, the problem that we're facing is we have different types of stresses in our life. Stresses that are not life or death, but we're experiencing these stresses all the time. What do? Well, one problem is we turn on the sympathetic nervous system for those little simple problems. If you think about when you're driving in traffic, when you've got a bad phone call, or you got an argument with your boss, all of those things now stimulate and activate our sympathetic nervous system. Now, everyone can live in stress for short periods of time, right? It's there to protect us. But in that process, it takes away from the body, right? It takes away from everything we know in life. And what ends up happening is you lose that energy. You lose that to the outer external environment. And when that happens, we start creating illness. So we will be talking about what it means to live in survival or live in creation. And living in creation is no longer stimulating the sympathetic nervous system, staying in a calm state, and activating our creative mind. Now, when we talk about the creative mind, why is it so hard to access our creative mind? Well, pretty much we've been raised in a system that fosters us to no longer be creative. What do I mean? Well, if you think about in grade school, what you're taught to stop daydreaming and listen. Stop piddling around and listen. Quit doing this and listen, right? So that's what we've been conditioned since a very early age in life. What does that mean? Well, what is daydreaming? In many ways, daydreaming is you in the creative world, you in the creative mind. And at an early age, we're told that it's not a good thing for us. We're told that it's not something we should be doing. So, in a lot of ways, it limits us from being creative, exploring ourselves, exploring our mind, and seeing our greatest potential because we no longer go there, right? So then we will be talking about that, what it means to live in survival, what it means to live in creation, and how do you stay in creation, right? Then the next step is going to be your three brains. So we're going to talk about how to apply this information and how it functions within the brain. So we will break it down into three major parts of the brain. You've got the neocortex, you got the limbic brain, and you got the cerebellum. So essentially, that's the thinking brain, the doing brain, and the becoming brain. Now, we will break that down to help you understand how each part of the brain works and how they work together, and why having a simple thought affects the chemicals that are produced in the body, the reactions in the body, and when we do it enough times with enough repetition, how it becomes a program in our body and our life. So we will touch on that a lot and help you understand how a simple thought does program your brain, conditions the body, and then becomes like a software program that we have no control over, or we don't think we have control over. And then finally, we're going to talk about brainwaves. We're going to talk about how, let's say, for example, if I said that you had to regurgitate everything I just said in this video and tell me everything I said, and there's going to be a test on it and you're going to be graded on it, you are going to go into what's called high stress, high beta brainwaves. Now, when that happens, you are no longer able to take in information. You're no longer able to be in the creative sense. You are actually ready for the sympathetic nervous system to turn on, and you're going to do one of three things again. You're going to either run, fight, or hide, right? That's what we want to do when we're that stressed out. Well, we're going to talk about how we can go from beta, high beta, mid beta to low beta, to alpha, to theta, and to delta. Now, the cool thing about this is we do it every day. When you go to sleep, you go from beta to alpha to theta to delta, and delta is deep sleep. And then when we wake up, you go back through that process again, the other direction, from delta to theta to alpha to beta, and the beta is the waking self. So that's where you are when you're active. When I'm talking to you, I'm in mid beta, right? I'm actively sharing information. So we do that twice a day. Now, if we can master those processes of controlling how we go from one brainwave to the next, we can start learning how to stay in the creative mind. We can learn how to control our behaviors. We can now control our thoughts. We can control our actions. Now we have the ability to create. When we stay in that creative state of mind, you have the potential to create the life you want. How? You are rewiring how you think about situations. You're rewiring how you think about certain people. No longer does that person bother you. No longer does that person cause you problems, because you reprogram it in your brain and they no longer are an issue to you. Your environment no longer bothers you, no longer controls you, and you're no longer worried about what's going to happen in the future based on the past. And that's the beauty of this program. Now, that's how you change, right? That's how you can become the person you've always wanted to be. Now, imagine if a whole company does this. How different would your meetings, weekly meetings, monthly meetings be if everyone could be a little bit more connected, a little bit more creative, a little bit more open to new ideas, new thoughts? You're going to see change in the company, and you're going to see change in all your environment. And you didn't really have to do anything, right? It started with you. You learned how to change yourself. Now, how does this affect you as a practitioner? Well, imagine if you're behaving differently, you're acting differently, you're approaching your clients, your patients in a different manner, with more love, happiness, compassion. What could happen? Greater outcomes, greater successes. Hearing people say, I wish I would have come to you before. It happens all the time. The thing is, you're not doing anything other than becoming the person you've always been, allowing yourself to experience the feelings that you've always had. Like the title says of the course, you're literally changing your mind to create new results. I hope you enjoyed this.